There were a few issues. I think I'd agree with a lot of what Deputy Doherty said. That my first issue is the VAT increase, by definition, is a regressive taxation move, for all the reasons that have already been outlined, which fits into a regressive budget. There was an interesting article in the paper, I think late last week, showing that this is the first regressive budget, whilst I've criticised Fianna Fáil's fiscal policy roundly for quite some time. Certainly the article in the, I think it was in the Irish Times.
What was the source of it?
I don't know, I was just reading from it, but it was saying that the
source of the article?
I can't recall right now, but I can.
Is it the SRI report?
I'll find it.
Oh, good.
This is a regressive budget, and
the source that you don't know.
Well, according to the Irish Times. Was it the ERSI report?
Okay. Sorry, apologies, Deputy.
Right, says the ERSI report. So we've got the first regressive budget in a number of years as part of an austerity budget, which to me shows a very clear move from the centre to the right. I outlined in the Dole a case where I went through the numbers. A single mother in Faster-Owen Bray is being cut, and I appreciate this as finance rather than expenditure, but is having a cut 46 times that of someone earning 150,000 living in a wealthier part of the country, which is absolutely extraordinary. So I would just like to echo Deputy Doherty's concerns that I understand that standard economic policy says tax consumption rather than labour. And in a steady state economy, a gradual move from taxing labour to taxing consumption is seen as a fairly good thing. However, in the current situation, I must object strongly to the, unfortunately, according to the case studies I've seen in the analysis, really a deeply regressive budget that I think is ideologically flawed. In that it says, you know, if you want to promote jobs, don't tax labour, so cut instead. There's a report out of Italy, which I can send on to you as well, out of an Italian university in the last few weeks. It was in the Wall Street Journal over the weekend, which was showing that the effect on the domestic economy of taxing, of tax increases, is 1/3 the effect of cuts. But unfortunately, here we seem to be going the other way. And as Deputy Doherty has said, this is impacting on local business. I have a prominent businessman in Bray came to me. He runs a shop that's been in Bray for, I believe, over 100 years. He believes that the 2% increase in VAT is going to put him out of business. They've been there for an awfully long time. They're hanging on by their fingernails, as you know, Minister. Many business people in your own constituency are as well. This is not a guy prone to scaremongering. He's not a guy who usually goes and sees his local TD. He's a businessman. He comes from a trading family in Bray. He reckons this is the final straw. He reckons he's going to have to close down and put everybody out of business. Which brings up the second issue. I've been submitting some PQs over the last few weeks to Minister Noonan and received conflicting responses, but I got the latest one this morning, and it's on the calculation of the amount. So the full year amount from the increase will be 670 million. The Taoiseach that confirmed to me in the chamber that this was a static estimate, that how this was calculated was the total amount of stuff, the total value of goods that this applies to is simply multiplied by 0.02 and you get 670 million. Now, I got a conflicting answer to a PQ from Minister Noonan saying that second order effects had been taken into account. So I pressed again and asked for the actual analysis. And not unsurprisingly, I didn't get the analysis, but I was informed that actually it was a static calculation. Now, obviously, there are serious second order effects which occur when you increase price. The most obvious being consumption falls. It's the entire economic rationale really behind the jobs initiative. Reduce the VAT on tourist-related goods, jobs and tourism will increase. If you take fairly conservative assumptions around elasticity of consumption versus price, and reasonably conservative assumptions in terms of the number of businesses that will close down, like the gentleman in Bray, the number of people that'll put out of work, And the loss in corporation tax. As you'll know, I'm sure, from business as well, Minister, in your own constituency, what a lot of the businesses in Wicklow are telling me, particularly the ones in the hospitality trade, they're saying they're just going to absorb the 2% themselves. They feel that they can't increase the prices. They're going to absorb it. A few of them have said, as a result, we'll have to lay off a person or half a person. But obviously their profits fall if they absorb a 2% increase in price. They don't pass it on to the consumer. So there's three major effects this will cause. One is a drop in consumption. The second is an increase in unemployment. And the third is a fall in corporation tax. I did a very simple back-of-the-envelope calculation that suggests that the three of those probably come in at about 300 million. Now, I spoke to, I believe it was Stephen Kinsella, who had done more advanced analysis on it, and he got to about 350 million. And so I'm puzzled by this, because if those calculations are correct, they could amount to almost a third of the full billion that the tax increases are projected to take. So I would just love your thoughts on that.
Minister.
Firstly, the report that you're referring to was the SRI report, which I'll send you a copy. You should read, because they don't come to the same conclusions that you come to. They have a view about the regressive nature of the indirect tax increase, which we had a discussion of yesterday when you weren't here. But they have a different view on the question of whether or not our taxation system over a period of years has been more or less progressive in terms of the adjustments. So they don't arrive at the conclusions that you have arrived. And I think you should read it, because their switch model is interesting. And then in terms of getting that assessment, they make the point that the biggest adjustment has been on well-off families. They've very interesting things to say about the elderly too, in terms of the lack of reduction there. But they make the point that cumulatively the budgets since the start of this, which admittedly have been over two governments' lifetime, have been more than progressive. And actually, if one looks at the six countries, we're out on top in terms of the progressive nature of those budgets. So I think you should read it, then come back to us on that. Sometimes headlines are misleading, Deputy, as you know yourself. Sure. Now, would you
just as a quick follow-up, would you accept that this is definitionally mathematically a regressive budget? This current one is.
Well, every time you take money out of an economy, it's a regressive thing. But I don't accept their view. I don't accept their view on the question of indirect taxation, which I'm going to explain. In terms of any form of decision that a government has to take in terms of increased taxes or reductions in expenditure, if you stop spending money that a government has, you know you're going to stop spending money, and you know pretty much certainly that the billion you're not going to spend on capital or whatever isn't going to be spent. When you decide on a taxation policy one way or the other, no one is ever sure as to how much you're going to bring in, because it's based on human behaviour. If ever there was an example of this, is probably on this area, because this is based on consumption and people have the choice to buy a good or not. So in that case, you know, in trying to make these adjustments last, you're probably better off to do more on the expenditure side than on the tax side, because you're certain whether or not you can spend that money. It is not as clear when it comes to taxation, particularly in a circumstance of an economy like ours, which is recovering after this enormous drop from the edge of a cliff, as it were. Now, I won't agree with Deputy Doherty. I mean, I'm not suggesting, and I didn't say, nor did the Minister for Finance say at any stage in our contributions, that this isn't a budget, you know, where there's no increase in taxation. There is increase in taxation. But we have made the decision in trying to keep people at work and to keep that incentive there for work to not increase direct income taxation. But I admit to you, there is increases in taxation here, there and everywhere, as there will be over the course of the next few years. In order to get this 3% budget deficit by 2015, this will require a number of budgets which increase tax and reduce expenditure. That is as obvious as the nose in your face. There is no other way around trying to get to that target. So I'm not pretending to people that there are no tax increases. There are tax increases. But the decisions the government have taken in terms of this budget are trying as best we can to not harm economic growth as part of our assessment. And I go back to what the ESRI said about this. It is about disposable income. I also agree with you. It is about how much money people have in their pocket at the end of the month, the end of the week, in terms of spending in the real economy. One of the points that Deputy Donnelly made is correct, of course. People, if you go to any high street, be it in Bray or Greystones, or in your own constituency or elsewhere, what you're finding is that there is significant discounting of pricing that is going on. Now that is an understandable reaction in a circumstance where the domestic economy is difficult, and that has been factored into our proposal here. The fact that discount pricing is taking place, the fact that the sales phenomena is occurring everywhere you go, in terms of buying goods and services for the consumer, things have come down, rightly so, because for many years the consumer was being ripped off by many of the prices that were being charged within the retail economy as well. So I make the point that we will see how we go this year. Our estimate is on 650 million. I understand what Deputy Donnelly says about the totality of the €1 billion tax take that we're saying. He's suggesting that could be down by a third. We will see whether we hit the targets that we have set out in the budget. But he was referring earlier to, I mean, the hospitality sector has a VAT rate of 9%. That is not affected by this increase. 51%, as I said earlier, 51% of all goods and services are not subject, are subject to the standard rate. So many of these goods and services are by choice. You decide whether you buy a good or a service which has 23% attached to it or not. So this gives people the choice to decide in the certainty of where their disposable income is guaranteed between now and the end of December. And that's the choice. Like, I would love to be in a position, Deputy, as you would love to be, to have options, but the options open to the government are very, very limited, as I think people honestly accept. And we've got to make those choices in a circumstance where we have got to hit our target of 8.6% of the budget, of the deficit by the end of this year. The important thing is that last year we managed not only to hit our target, but we got within significantly, which makes the job of this year slightly easier. And I would also point out, irrespective of what the central bank have said, irrespective of what the less growth projections are for this year, everyone has accepted that we can still hit our target of 8.6%, even with lower growth in the Irish economy. He's also aware that the Department of Finance will produce in April, I think it is, our own growth forecasts for the end of 2012. We'll see where it goes. But do I accept that, and the totality of 1 billion that we'll be out by a third? That is not our assessment of it, Deputy.
Okay.
Can I ask a
This is fair area. Okay, Deputy.
Just to Minister, the specific question is, we may not be out by a third. I hope we're not out by a third. My question is, on the basis that these second order effects are fairly standard, right? If you increase price, consumption is going to fall. It could be quite a bit. My question is, why was the analysis not done? It seems like extraordinarily simple analysis. And if there is a question that there may be up to 300 million in second order effects, it seems odd to me that the analysis wasn't done. So my first question is, why was the analysis not done? And my second one is just a reply to your statement that every time you take money out of an economy, it's regressive. So just to be clear, every time you take money out of an economy, it's not regressive. How you take money out of an economy is what determines whether it's progressive or regressive. And if you have a situation where a single mum with 4 kids in Bray is taking a cut 46 times that of someone earning 150,000, it's reasonable to say that that is a regressive budget. And would you therefore accept that the definition of regressive is not taking money out of an economy, it's how you take money out of an economy?
Say that again, sir.
Sure. The second point was around, you made the point that taking money, every time you take money out of an economy, it's regressive. It's not. How you take the money out of an economy determines whether it's progressive or regressive.
It's the person has to pay it up.
Yeah, sure, but
that's not how you measure.
But that's not how you measure progressive versus regressive. Progressive versus regressive
Yes.
means
I know.
Are the people at the high end?
You're referring to the ESRI report, which you need to read.
I think that was just, I think there is a general understanding about regressive means and progressive means. I don't think there's a big dispute about that. Okay,
fine. So then it's just the first question. Why was the analysis not done?
Well, can I read you the note on that I have here? On the question of the 580 million in 2012, the imposition of a budgetary adjustment package has negative economic implications in the short run. It takes money out of the economy. This means that the deficit will not reduce by the full amount of adjustment package implemented. If you think of it like this, in very simplistic terms, a VAT rate increase, an income tax increase, or a social welfare rate reduction would all directly or indirectly reduce the amount of money people have to spend, with consequential negative implications for consumer spending and therefore tax receipts. Now, table 5 of page D13, this was the budget booklet. On the day the minister got up to make his statement, there is a full booklet setting out this information out, so I would refer to that. Sets out the impact of the budget on the fiscal position. Here it sets out the imposition of new budgetary measures, of which the VAT rate increase is one element, that it would reduce taxes by 770 million. This is the negative economic buoyancy from the imposition of consolidation. In other words, if you will not get the full benefit of the budgetary adjustment package because of the fact that it has negative economic implications in the short run, it is built into the overall budgetary arithmetic.
PQ. It says it was a first order static calculation.
The 670 is. Well, we understand it is. I'll take that issue up in the PQ if that wasn't communicated in the PQ. I'll have a look at that. What's the PQ from yesterday?
Can you communicate that across?
Yeah, sure.
I'll find it on this side, okay? Very good. And if you need clarification, we can set up a specific meeting on that.
All right. Thank you.
That's very helpful, Minister. Thank you. Okay, section 75. The section